Guyana has been working towards getting fully on board the European Union Forest Law Enforcement, Governance and Trade Action Plan, which sets out a range of measures to tackle illegal logging around the world. The country will soon sign a Voluntary Partnership Agreement, or VPA, with the EU. This has seen extensive work being undertaken by stakeholders in the forestry sector and beyond. In this episode, you will learn more about supporting measures and financing mechanisms being put in place to facilitate the effective implementation of the VPA, as outlined under Annex 8. The annexes describe the practical steps for implementing the core commitments in the VPA in detail.
There is need for support in various aspects, within the process. So, as much as we have been discussing what the system is and what it is going to look like, I think it becomes quite clear after you start talking VPA that you're going to need some support, and especially for a country like ours, the system is there, but clearly there is need to build on and improve in some areas, and in many cases you need know-how, you need capacity, you need training. In some cases, you need that sort of infrastructure as well to make things work. So, I think Annex 8 is critical to this process. Without it and without having an avenue where we could ask or say, listen, if you want us to engage in a VPA, and we are obviously down that road, we need to talk about the kinds of support that are required. So I think Annex 8. And again, what it does nicely is that it gives us a chance, those of us that are very integrally involved in the process, to think not just about what the Forestry Commission may need, for example, or what another agency that is feeding into this process, but it gives us a chance to say to our stakeholders, listen, we understand that you may also have some needs and support that you need in this type of process. And Annex 8, I think, really opens up the gap, opens up a space where we can say, listen, what are the kinds of help that you need, and how can we, how can you bring that to the table, and then us table that at a higher level where the kind of support can be clearly spelled out.
This annex looks at the various gaps and how those gaps can be filled, and how stakeholders can benefit in terms of improving what they already have, enhancing what they already have, so that, the system will work.
In this regard, a FLEGT Facilitation Support Office was established in Guyana. The office will provide the facilitation and support mechanism needed to aid the disbursement of grants to fund agreed work programs approved by the Government of Guyana through its National Technical Working Group, NTWG.
This office was established in June 2014, as a project or a program to provide support to the government of Guyana and the European Union as they negotiate the Voluntary Partnership Agreement.
I think for processes like these, you need some level of neutrality, and I think with how the support office was designed, bringing somebody like Dr. Atta, for example, who has a wealth of experience and knowledge in these kinds of processes, bringing somebody like him to facilitate, to allow, I think, sometimes the conversation to continue amongst different stakeholder groups. And I think bringing that to the table was very useful. And I think the way the office has managed to do it, that facilitation function, I think has really helped us in keeping the roadmap and keeping our timelines. And I think it has really helped in bringing us to the level that we're at now with the VPA. So I would say that facilitation function was necessary, because I think when we envision this entire process, thinking of who would exactly be that person that sort of go between, sometimes for want of a better way of putting it, the sort of difficult conversations. I think Dr. Atta and his team have really managed to bridge many gaps quite nicely.
in our first year of operation, we had a sharing of experiences workshop, which focused on the VPA negotiations. During that seminar, we brought in persons from various parts of the world, from other VPA countries, including Ghana, Honduras. We had persons from Suriname speaking on their experiences in the VPA process and in dealing with civil society groups. So that workshop, that seminar was very useful.
Government has identified key areas for assistance and development in order to effectively implement the Voluntary Partnership Agreement. These include capacity building, communication, promotion of FLEGT products on the union market, monitoring the domestic timber market, industrialization, and monitoring the impact of the agreement.
Guyana is negotiating a voluntary partnership agreement with the European Union under its FLEGT action plan. This agreement will provide significant benefits to stakeholders within the sector whilst promoting Guyana's robust forest management systems. Let us work together to build our economy through proper management of our forest resources.
The office sets out to achieve two main objectives: facilitation services and negotiating support.
The FLEGT facilitation service enables us to provide facilitation and support services to the European Union and the government of Guyana, and to work with other stakeholders in the country to work towards a common position in the negotiations with the European Union. So it is sort of providing support to allow stakeholders in the country to develop a common position as they negotiate with the European Union. And the National Technical Working Group is the lead agency in this regard. So our support in terms of facilitation works with the National Technical Working Group, but also there are resources which have been provided by the governments of UK and Norway to support the negotiation process.
Government has identified key areas for assistance and development in order to effectively implement the Voluntary Partnership Agreement. These include helping to monitor implementation of the Legality Assurance Scheme, modernizing the traceability system, legality assurance system, the system for issuing FLEGT licenses, establishing the independent audit, and seeking additional financing.
Guyana is negotiating a voluntary partnership agreement with the European Union under its FLEGT action plan. This agreement will provide significant benefits to stakeholders within the sector whilst promoting Guyana's robust forest management systems. Let us work together to build our economy through proper management of our forest resources.
Effective support is available to both the Guyana and EU negotiating teams that enable them to monitor progress, identify problems, undertake stakeholder perspectives, and provide relevant and timely input to the dialogue between the two parties.
This process is about negotiations at three levels. One level is negotiation between Guyana and the EU. But before that must happen, there must be in-country negotiations. And this happens between the stakeholder groups in Guyana. And then within stakeholder groups too, you have internal negotiations, which is the third level or the very initial level. So you need to have persons engaged in that process at the lower level, build up to the between stakeholder engagements, and carry that on to the national level. And this is where the NTWG therefore coordinates the discussions within stakeholder groups, between stakeholder groups, and at the country level or national level to create a country position on the various elements of the voluntary partnership agreements.
The negotiating support systems provide a mechanism for the disbursements of grant funding to assist the National Technical Working Group in its preparation of Guyana's positions for the VPA negotiations.
In order for the stakeholders to be able to build capacity, to disseminate information in terms of other aspects of communication and so on, they need money to do that. So the money is available, but it has to be accessed through projects. And when they get, the projects are approved and they implement it, there will be something within the system that is being addressed, some challenge, some gap, whatever it may be, and an enhancement in the system, making the system workable.
With respect to the grant mechanism, we provide support to the grant applicants and to the grant beneficiaries, those that have been successful in their proposal submission. What we do is provide training on the grant reporting. We also provide guidance on the due diligence process, which is one of the requirements in accessing the grant funding. What we have done is that we've tried to make the grant reporting, that process, much easier by developing guidelines, financial reporting guidelines, as well as templates that would serve to make the reporting easier.
Government has identified key areas for assistance and development in order to effectively implement the voluntary partnership agreement. These include capacity building, communication, promotion of FLEGT products on the union market, monitoring the domestic timber market, industrialization, and monitoring the impact of the agreement.
Guyana is negotiating a voluntary partnership agreement with the European Union under its FLEGT action plan. This agreement will provide significant benefits to stakeholders within the sector whilst promoting Guyana's robust forest management systems. Let us work together to build our economy through proper management of our forest resources.
Several workshops have been held with stakeholders as part of support and capacity building measures, including a proposal writing clinic.
It is important for me to mention that we have been working closely with the NTWG in providing support to the various stakeholders. In 2015, we had our first proposal writing workshop. We thought this was necessary based on the feedback that we had received from the stakeholders, from NGOs, indigenous groups. We thought that we should have this workshop that would build capacity, that would enable organizations to come up with a project idea and to help them design a project and to assist with the proposal writing.
Recently, we had this proposal writing clinic. How that really came around is that we had a call for proposals. The NTWG sent out a call for proposals, and these proposals are prepared by stakeholders, and the way it is prepared is when they identify gaps within, there is need for capacity building, there is need for communication, dissemination of information, and so on. And when these proposals were submitted, we recognized that all stakeholders, or a lot of stakeholders, did not get the opportunity to prepare and send in proposals. And we identified that one of the reasons that this was so is because people really don't know or have that experience in writing proposals. So we decided that we called on the FLEGT Facilitation Support Office, and they provided that technical support that was needed. And we came up with a proposal writing clinic where 2 experts were sourced from the Center for International Development and Training. They were brought here, and we identified areas, or rather catchment areas per se, where we can actually target a wide stakeholder group in those areas, and namely that would be Anai, Essequibo, and Georgetown. Those, for some who were in Berbice and so came down to Georgetown and in Linden, Kokwani, and so. But essentially, we were able to hold these clinics and have an intense session of teaching people how to write proposals so that they can benefit from the call, because there's no sense we send out a call and people cannot really respond to it. And we recognized a lot of benefit coming from that proposal writing clinic.
The idea behind the clinic was really to try to, because one of the things that was limiting persons applying for these for the sport is that, I mean, as basic as you have it, you're still going to have a proposal submitted. You're still going to have to clearly articulate your ideas and your thinking in a manner that there are clear outputs and objectives, and we can measure something. So I think for me, the support clinic was really to try to bridge the gap. You have an idea, but how does that idea be well thought out, well articulated, well written, so that it is presented and can be examined and says, yes, this clearly links to the VPA process, and it has clear benefits it's going to bring to the table. So I think the clinic for me has been quite effective. We've received a lot more proposals than we did before, and what I think is very, very good is that the range of proposal is very wide. It's not just government, but it's civil society, it's private sector, it's communities, it's individuals. It's really the full gamut of people in that sense, or a cross section of the people or the stakeholders that are involved in this process. I think it has been tremendously effective.
Looking beyond this, I mean, in the future, whether it's this organization, whether it's the NTWG or another donor agency, when they have that call for proposals, I think because of this intervention, those groups would better be able to respond to those calls for proposals.
Among the stakeholder groups benefiting directly from such initiatives are small loggers, indigenous groups, government agencies, forest product associations, and other civil society groups.
We're talking right now to communities, for example, say, listen, what kinds of support do you think you're going to need? And we're also taking some of those ideas to them. Listen, this is what is required. Are you there? Can you meet these requirements? Can your information be stored in a manner that is user-friendly, can get to us? Or what would we need to make that happen? So those are some of the kind of support that we talk about under the support measures.
Government has identified key areas for assistance and development in order to effectively implement the Voluntary Partnership Agreement. These include helping to monitor implementation of the Legality Assurance Scheme, modernizing the traceability system, legality assurance system, the system for issuing FLEGT licenses, establishing the independent audit, and seeking additional financing.
Guyana is negotiating a voluntary partnership agreement with the European Union under its FLEGT action plan. This agreement will provide significant benefits to stakeholders within the sector whilst promoting Guyana's robust forest management systems. Let us work together to build our economy through proper management of our forest resources.
The FLEGT Voluntary Partnership Agreement, once signed and ratified, will enter the implementation phase. It is during this phase that stakeholders will be required to have their systems tested to ensure that they are on par with the VPA requirements and the Guyana Timber Legality Assurance System.
The VPA has made it clear that we need to have an information sharing that is happening. And clearly for the VPA to work effectively, and time being a big factor in how quickly you can approve stuff for export and so on, we had to start thinking, for example, about a database that is integrated. How will agencies be able to share information? So how will NIS share information with us and vice versa? Or GRA share information with us and vice versa? And we recognize that that is going to require a sort of a network, sort of a database, a sort of information sharing database, as it were.
Guyana is quite close to the end of the process in terms of the initial signing. Perhaps in the very coming months they could move towards that if the activities as planned in the roadmap between the EU and Guyana moves, or where there are some changes in terms of the deadlines, then sometime early part of next year you could find that Guyana could move if the stakeholders in country agree that yes, this is how to move.
Be sure to join us again next time as we continue our journey towards improving transparency and accountability in the management of Guyana's forest resources.